right, guys. I wish I wasn't here right now dealing with something. As you saw in the video, I've got some definite issues with the engine. I've using my stethoscope, which I did not film. I really needed to focus. I was doing all this by myself. I started looking or listening around, and the loudest noises were coming from the number 4 intake valve. Okay, so the most obvious noises were coming from the number 4 intake valve, and it's a very, very high metallic ting. None of the other areas of the engine are making that sound. So there's definitely something going on here. I don't know if I've got a bent valve. As you're looking at it, I mean, you guys are seeing what I'm seeing. There's really nothing obvious, nothing glaring. The cam lobes have some wear on them, which is to be expected. The valves have been adjusted. That doesn't mean that something happened to this particular valve here and I've got an issue. To give you background on what happened, the engine was running great. I had been going down the interstate and plenty of power, no sign that something had happened to the engine. So rolling along, I get off the interstate, and I've owned several classic cars. This is not uncommon that when you come off the interstate, the oil's really hot. It's been working, and the oil light started flickering as I dropped down to idle. Actually, this particular carburetor, when it basically slammed shut, and so you see a big dip in the idle. So it'll drop, it'll go past below idle down to like 600-ish RPMs and come back up. And that's when the oil light started flickering. It did go away, especially after the oil temps, everything kind of settled. But then, while going around 50 miles an hour, I start hearing this pretty noticeable knocking noise. And I'm thinking, what? So I had my daughter with me, and she could hear it too. I rolled down the window, and it was insane. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I have a busted rod. What's interesting though, there's no power loss at all. And using the stethoscope, I cannot hear, well, I can vaguely hear the knocking noise throughout the engine, but it is obvious here. Like it's really intense. I'm trying to get you guys some shots. Maybe you'll see something I don't. Sorry for the camera jostling around. Somebody just puked. Trying to get, anything that looks glaringly obvious to anyone involving this area of the cylinder head. Again, there's some, to be expected wear. I actually thought it was a fuel pump. I removed the fuel pump because when I first did the stethoscope and I put the stethoscope on the fuel pump, it was like, okay, yeah, I've got a bad fuel pump. That is what that is. Pull the fuel pump off. You can see I put some aluminum tape over its port, put the valve cover loosely back on, started the engine up. It was quiet. That's, it has been doing that when I first started up. It's quiet regardless. And but as soon as I revved up the engine, the clatter came back. And so I kept the engine revving, and that's when the stethoscope led me to literally right there, putting the probe in this area right here, the intake. There was a very distinct and loud metallic clank. long story short, I need to remove the drive shaft so that I can unbolt the starter and the clutch slave cylinder and disengage the transmission from the rest of the engine. It's motor mount. It's speedometer drive and a few little wires here and there. Huh. I didn't know that was broken. Maybe it's not. That might be a leaf. Anyways. So yeah. So that noise you heard in the clip that I shared, I thought was coming from up there on the fuel pump. And I also thought it might have been a rod knock. It is not a rod knock. The noise is coming from literally right here in the bell housing. And so there's something going on. And so what I ended up doing was I ordered some seals and a new clutch kit in addition to a flywheel. New flywheel instead of getting this old one resurfaced. Sorry, my hand's shaking, apologize about that. So I got some work to do here, and as I mentioned in a previous video while riding the Buell, I was going to take some time off. Today is that day, so stuff to do. I'm also going to go ahead and flush the engine out. It's got some, still got some, well, it's going to have some ongoing sludge build up, but I need to clean it out as much as I can. So, and then I'll drop the oil since I'm going to be replacing the rear main seal. Unfortunately, the post office lost the rear and the rear output shaft seal and the input shaft seal for this transmission, and I have run out of time, and I really do not like the idea of putting this transmission back together or putting it back on without replacing those, at least while I'm in there. But I'm at the point now I don't really have a choice. I got to get this thing fixed because I need my truck back. So it really sucks, you know. I'm glad that there are audits going on. Yeah, this is partly political because the post office, I think some of you have experienced this too, has consistently been losing stuff. And it's this is a situation where it's real world, and here I am stuck without all the parts I need and having to make a, in my opinion, somewhat difficult choice. An incorrect choice in my opinion, but I have to do something. So yep, let's get started. I forgot that I needed to remove the center console so that I can remove the shift lever. And so to get to that, to all the screws that are for the armrest portion, it's easier just to remove the seats. So I forgot about that, and I got hot and heavy and forgot to film it, but I don't think that that's, I don't know. Somebody out there is crying about it, guaranteed. All right, back to work. I'm going to go ahead and remove this off camera. This is just 6 bolts and 3 more little screws inside there, and or bolts, and then I'll pull it out. And then I got to drop the transmission oil. Matter of fact, I should have started with that. Doggone it, I was under there. You know, it's been a minute since I've been a full-time mechanic. I used to have a pretty good pattern about doing things. Anyways, I'll get to it, and I'll try and grab everything I can. Camera angles are going to be a problem. I'm just going to tell you that up front. So, all right, let's get to it. All right, let's do a catch up. I still have the transmission out. It's been a fun time. So there's about 8 million bolts that Mazda decided to put into that transmission bolting it to the back of the engine there. So they're a mix of 17 mil, 14 mil. I think they're mostly 17 and 14 mil. So some of them you got to get from the top up here, and others you got to get from the bottom. Yeah, it sucks doing it on your back, man. You know, it'd be nice if I had a lift, but I don't have a lift, so I got to deal with what I got to deal with. So next part of this is I got to pull the transmission cross member out of the way. Everything's loose, right? Except for the transmission. For some reason, I got to get it knocked loose from the engine. I think it's just got a good seal on the between the tunnel and the engine there. I'm trying to get you guys a good shot of what I see with my eyes. I'll take you over here too. Yeah, so I've got a ratchet strap around the transmission tunnel just to steady it in case while I'm pulling off the oops, sorry. Kind of get you guys a better shot. I'm actually hoping that if there's any extra bolts that I missed, I can see them in this video too, but it doesn't look like that's the case. So anyways, I got a jack underneath the transmission tunnel and a ratchet strap so that while I'm pulling off the cross member, you know, things don't go suddenly sideways and I'm in a world of hurt, because I am doing this by myself. And I pulled that plug wire off just in case you're wondering, so that I could get to the bolt I needed to get to. I'm half tempted not to put them all back in, man. they suck. So my neighbor dropped off my additional parts from Rock Auto. He received them by accident. So anyways, that's good news. So I'll have all the parts I wanted. These are all SKF parts. I wanted a good bearing for the pilot bearing. I'm sure that the one that comes with my clutch kit is fine, but I know it's SKF or high quality bearings. I got to make sure I get a new crush washer for my transmission drain plug. This one's seen better days. So it's crushed multiple times. I don't know how many times that thing's been squished. So anyways, I'm going to continue on. I'm actually not going to film everything, guys. I apologize in advance. I've been at this all day, and you know, getting up and back, you know, up and down and up and down and up and down, trying to get all the bolts out. Just couldn't get a good angle on the bolts from the underside, and then it come from the top, and couldn't get a good angle from them there either. So it was a blast. So I guess maybe hopefully the worst of it's behind me. I'm hoping that I discover what the noise was inside the bell housing. I'm hoping it's nothing big. Praying that it's nothing big. So, all right, guys, this is where we're at. Got everything out. Transmission, everything. Just so you know, that transmission is not all that heavy. In case any of you are wondering, it's probably, I don't know, maybe 75, 80 pounds, somewhere in there. What I did was just, once I got the cross member out, it was pretty easy. And actually the cross member was harder to pull out of the truck than the transmission was, aside from the bolts. So anyways, yeah, you just pull it out, rest it on your chest, and then just kind of roll it off of you, and you're good to go. And then you can see I'm using a piano dolly to carriage it around. I'm going to clean it up before I put it back in. So I was looking for anything obvious, and initially I was like, oh man, this ain't good. There's nothing here. But, so here's the pilot bearing. It's definitely bad. I can shake it, and it's got a lot of play in it. So that's bad. It blew out its seal. That was the engine side. This is the clutch side. And so, anyways, there's that. Okay, the astute among you recognize this is not a factory clutch. Someone has been in here before. This is an Exity clutch. So good clutch, except that you see some shiny spots on those springs. And then some shiny spots on the flywheel bolts. That's not normal. I think that, so these were tight. These are loose, pretty loose. I'm wondering if, so here's the deal. All right, let me kind of back up. The noise occurred right at 2,000 RPMs. And so I'm wondering if the inertial force was pushing these springs out enough to make some kind of impact on these bolts. That's my theory. I'm not exactly sure. There are no other obvious signs of damage. There's this rubber grommet that came out whenever I pulled everything apart. There's another piece underneath the truck over there, but the transmission is definitely going to need a rebuild at some point in its life. It's you know, it's old. It kind of growls, not growls like bearing noise, growls like gear noise. The noise happens with the truck in gear or out of gear. Doesn't matter. Neutral, in gear, driving around. It's always at 2,000 RPMs. And so that seems to me to be, I'm leaning toward this for now. I'm gonna go ahead and call it quits. Family's eating dinner. I've got a gigantic mess. I'm gonna leave it all night, just like that. I'm gonna close the garage and seal this in. Hopefully nobody comes in here and says, ooh, what's this? There are nuts and bolts everywhere. This is the sloppiest job I think I've ever done, but I got kind of frustrated with the transmission because, let me tell you something. Pull the cross member out first. I was thinking I could just slide it back a little bit. You cannot. You actually have to remove it completely. There's just not enough room in the tunnel to get the transmission out. So I was moving stuff around and kicking and thrashing and getting frustrated. So don't do that to yourself. Learn from me. Anyhow, I think we'll go ahead and call it quits for now. Actually, I'm going to call this part 1. We'll just make this a series of videos. So part 1, transmission's out, and part 2 coming soon. So until next time, peace out and keep it between the ditches.